Hey guys, I'm Karen, originally from Ireland, but have been living in New Zealand for 9 years, and I am a youth pastor up here in the far north in Kerry Baptist Church. And I want to talk to us today. We're just doing a short talk on pastoral care and kind of spontaneous pastoral care with our young people. In preparing this talk, I was sent a video, and it was by one of the legends in youth ministry, Doug Fields, and he shared this funny story. And he said that he was at a high school reunion, and a friend of his came up, and they were reflecting on stories, and his friend said that he had really liked this girl in high school, and he finally plucked up the courage to ask her out. And so he nervously went up, asked the girl out, and to his surprise, she said yes. And so when she said yes, he hadn't thought through what he would do when she said yes, and so he said, "Okay, good," and walked away. And what this made me think of is we as youth pastors, youth workers, volunteers, we have a passion for youth ministry, and we have a care to do pastoral care, but sometimes we may freeze when a young person comes up to us and we haven't thought through how exactly we're going to care for that young person. And so there's 3 ways that we can react to a young person coming to us. We can freeze and not know what to do. The second thing is we can react with anger, with pride, with judgment, with fear, so we can react. And the third thing that we can do is we can respond. And I wanted to look at responding tonight, of how we can respond in a healthy way to when a young person comes to us for pastoral care. And we're going to use an acronym called LOVE. And this isn't my own acronym. This is from a book called Help My Kids Are Hurting from Marv Penner. And what I've done is used his acronym, but I've developed it myself, and I find it really helpful. So the L in the LOVE acronym stands for listen. And for me, I want to park here for most of the time out of the 4, because I feel this is the most important. This is where the teen will open up, and this is where we can get it really right or we can get it really wrong. Marv Penner says that nothing communicates care for a hurting teenager more than thoughtful, active, non-judgmental listening. Unfortunately, many of us don't do this well. By definition, listening is other-centered, which means it doesn't come naturally. Most of us need to focus on being good listeners if we want the kids we work with to know that they matter to us. It's a learned skill that practice sharpens. Listening involves setting aside our own agenda and focusing on the thoughts, emotions, and experiences of another person. So a young person comes to you and they need pastoral care. Instantly in this listen category, I want the first thing that we need to be doing is be present. Be there in the moment with this young person, not checking the time, what's going on around you, your phone. They need to feel that your focus is completely on them and that they fully matter to you and that they are worth your attention. The second thing, even if they cannot give you their eye contact, maybe because of shame or whatever, you're giving them your eye contact and your attention, and that you're not freaked out and can't look them in the eye. Third point is we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's use accordingly. And I've heard that from somebody else, a bit of another legend in youth ministry, Garth Collins, said this to me, and it's so good. Listen more than you speak. You'll pick up a lot more about the teen's situation as you listen. Number 4, be okay with pauses and silence. This is really important because the teen may be processing. We don't constantly need to try and fill the silence. It may be awkward. Sit in that awkwardness, because it's better not to rush ahead of the teen and come to a wrong conclusion. It's better to actually allow them have time to process and come to the right conclusion. Number 5, be aware of your own body language. Are you frowning? Are you jittery? Are you awkward? Is your body language nice and open and comforting, and or is it closed and judgmental and tense? Number 6, a quote from a book called What Could I Say by Peter Hicks. It's a pastoral care book. It says, don't just listen, hear as well. Be aware of their body language. Shame, maybe they can't look you in the eye. Vulnerable, they've got closed protective body language. Nervous, they may be shaking their hand or their foot. Tears, emotion. So what's happening here is you're listening with your eyes and your ears, and you are very aware of the situation in its entirety. This is really important. Because they may be saying one thing verbally, but their body language is saying something totally different. Number 7 is when speaking, ask open-ended questions. Again, this will help you connect the dots of what they're trying to tell you. So how did that make you feel? Or what happened next? Or what's going on in your head right now? So it's not just yes and no answers to the questions. Number 8 in the listen section is you may need to recap. So it might look like this. So you're saying da 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 da. Is that correct? So this helps you stay on the same page and not misunderstand what the teen's trying to say. It also gives them an opportunity to think and reflect as you're speaking. And it may lead to further opening up, or it gives them a chance to correct you if you're wrong and you've come to the wrong conclusion. And lastly, be inviting of God into the conversation in your mind, gently as you go throughout the conversation. It's kind of like having one ear on them and one ear on God. And so I just quickly say, Lord, I invite you into this in my head. Help me help them. And it's really quick so that I'm still focusing on the teen. And the reason I feel this section, the listen section, is the most important part, it can either go really right or really wrong. This is a place and a space where a young person may firstly ever open up about this situation, in a space where they can feel loved, not judged, free to open up and get help. Or if it goes wrong, they can feel not listened to, ignored, preached at, judged, and may completely shut down and not open up to anyone else in the future. Listening and its art can be very understated and underestimated, and I feel it's a powerful tool and key to good pastoral care. If we move on, O in our acronym stands for offer. We need to voluntarily be giving after the teen has come to us, not waiting on the teen to continue to approach us, because they've actually already done the hard work, and now we have a responsibility to do our part as well. So there needs to be light at the end of the conversation. There needs to be hope, encouragement, and support. There needs to be an awareness that the teen is not alone, and that they need to continue to feel safe as well, that we're not going to blab it all over youth group. And so you need to continue, you do need to communicate though, for legal reasons, if you need to pass this information on. So you do communicate that clearly if there's a legality of, abuse or something, that you have to pass it on. But gently do this. Don't do it to scare them. You gently do this. And it's to understand that to get them the best help possible, you may have to do this. Follow-up is key. Don't leave them hanging. I find a gentle follow-up text is really helpful so they know that you care. And another part of O is offer prayer. Always at the end, offer prayer. You point back to God and not a dependency on you. And also for you, it gives you a space to lay down those burdens before God again, so you're not carrying them. The offering of help may also be a counsellor, a doctor, regular meetups. It may mean getting their parent involved. They need to leave your presence knowing that there's a way forward. V stands for validate. It's been incredibly brave that they've come and they've made this step to talk to you. And it's almost like, put yourself in their shoes. Think if you had something shameful to tell somebody, how you'd feel, the fear. What are they going to think of me? Are they going to laugh? Are they going to judge? Are they even going to care? So their courage and bravery needs to be validated. Marv Penner says to validate their emotions and worth also. They need to know that their emotions are real. And they're feeling this for a reason. They may have been told at home to toughen up, or they're overreacting. And so they need a safe space to feel that their emotions are real. And validate their worth. This is so important. No matter what they've done, how they've stuffed up, their value has not changed. They are still incredibly valued. And E stands for eliminate and a few other things. So eliminate immediate dangers. Some of the teens may resist to dangers being removed or getting further help, but keep in mind, how can you best help the teen? And in the end, they have reached out to you for a reason. And to be honest, maybe they are so glad that somebody's finally willing to fight for them. So they may be needing a safe voice, a voice of reason, a good moral compass in their life at the moment. You may need to get a doctor involved to eliminate risk, or a counsellor, or you may need to report it to the authorities. This teen may need to be physically removed from a dangerous living environment. This is important that they are not left in a vulnerable and dangerous state. The other E's are empower choice, So remind them they do have a choice to make good decisions for their lives, or to accept Jesus, or to choose hope and have hope again. And lastly, the E is expect God's involvement. We can't do this on our own. Our talent will only take us so far. And yes, we need to refer to counselors when appropriate, but don't underestimate the power of God in this situation. He sees the depths of the teen's heart. He can give us eyes to see too, and say things that only come from Him into the situation. So recap: L stands for listen, O for offer, V for validate, and E for eliminate, empower, and expect. I hope this has been helpful for you guys, and bless you as you invest in the teens across our nation. Take care. Bye.
Hi everyone, here I am here with Karen Lovett. She's from Kerry Baptist Church. And Karen, can I just say thank you so much for the presentation you did. I really enjoyed what you brought, and it's so simple. And I actually really enjoy how you emphasize the importance of listening. And approximately half of your presentation is on listening. So as a Kiwi bloke, a fix-it type of person and an extrovert, I'm just wondering how you could maybe give me some hints on practicing the stance of listening.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very easy and probably normal for us to want to fix things and want to help, and that's quite normal. But we always need to ask the question that needs to always be in the back of our minds: how can we best help the team? What's best for them right now? And it really does start with listening. That's why I focus so much on listening, because when we're listening, that's when they can open up. So we need to kind of start changing that fix-it mindset, and having all the right answers, to be very intentional about listening. So it kind of takes the pressure off us being like superheroes, that we have to fix everything and we have to have all the right answers. I've found in my years in youth ministry, I've actually found that teens most often don't come to me looking for advice. They actually come to me looking for someone to listen to, and for someone to help them process what they're going through. And so they're just really looking for a space to process. And so I think if we can have this concept of empathy, and we can almost like place ourselves in their shoes. So for example, if we are feeling raw and vulnerable ourselves, and we're going to somebody wanting some pastoral care, we probably don't want all the right answers and lots of advice, because I personally feel that's quite overwhelming. But we just, in that initial stage of pastoral care, we just need a space to talk and process in that initial stage. Not that we don't offer help and everything as youth pastors, but in that initial stage, I think we often just need to have that space to listen. And always have listening at the forefront of our mind.
Yeah, that's really great. And it's really important to be able to listen with that posture of listening. I love watching Charles Hewlett. He's probably the master at listening and leaning into conversations. That's really good. Hey, also, Karen, I noted, and this is probably a good reminder to us all, but you spoke of some legal requirements in your video. So could you clarify some of the legal requirements of having to take further action or advising others, especially if there's something around harm or suicide?
Yeah, totally. So often if young people come to us and they say, can I tell you something in secret? We have to be very careful not to jump and say yes, because often we can't keep confidential the more serious issues. So we need to keep asking ourselves that same question: how can I best help the team? And so yes, there's obviously things we can keep confidential, and various areas of pastoral care that obviously we keep confidential. But if it's things like abuse, so sexual abuse, physical abuse, suicidal thinking, suicidal attempts, we cannot leave the teen in danger. And so if we send them home without telling anyone, we're actually leaving them at risk and leaving them quite vulnerable as well, to further abuse or an attempt of suicide. And so we actually do have a responsibility to talk to somebody. So that might be if your church has a child protection team, we may have to talk to the police, involve a parent, a counsellor, that sort of thing. We do have a responsibility to get the best help possible for the teen at risk. Um, I'm a big believer in involving the parent. So I always involve the parent, unless obviously they're the abuser, but I always involve the parent because I feel that's really, really important, that they're aware of what's going on with their child. And the other thing I also do as well for support for me, and I would recommend this to other youth leaders and youth pastors, is so that you're supported, have somebody that you can involve too. So I would approach my pastor and he would be my support person, because often these things can be quite heavy for us just to carry and journey alone. Um, Again, we always ask, how can I best help the teen? And so this isn't to put us on a guilt trip, but I often think if this teen came to me and told me, that they're feeling suicidal or they are in danger of abuse, and I just kept this secret to myself and they went home and they were in danger, that would be devastating. And so I always keep that question at the forefront of my mind. Yeah, I always kind of keep that question, how can I best help the teen?
Yeah, and that's great. And I'm sure that comes with experience, wisdom, but also a big bucket load of discernment.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Look, I'm sure it does. Hey, and just my final question, Karen, if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
because a lot of us are journeying through this, and would love to hear something like a narrative from you of an example of how you've used love, the acronym that you
Yeah,
use, actually in action, but keeping in mind the confidentialities of maybe a story you might share with us.
yeah, totally. So like you said, Stu, you just kind of keep that acronym at the back of your mind. It's nice and simple to remember the love acronym. So you kind of just keep it at the back of your mind. And I was going to share a story, a very simple illustration of it being in operation. And so I was at the church and a lady came in, never met her before, and she just came in off the street, and she was there for a food parcel and made a connection with me. And she was quite disturbed and distressed. And she wanted prayer, and she wanted me to pray with her. So I wasn't in danger or anything. Like, she wasn't that disturbed. And so I brought her aside, and I created that space for listening for her. So we started that space of listening. I gave her my full attention. There wasn't any distractions. The eye contact. I had one ear on God and one ear on her, listening to what she wanted to say. I was very aware of her body language. She couldn't make eye contact with me. She was scrolling on her phone all the time. She was very jittery and distracted. And so I listened and I gave her my full attention. Then I asked if I could pray, so I offered some prayer. She still was very distracted and couldn't really listen, couldn't really engage with prayer. So we paused and I listened again. And then as she talked, I prayed again for what she had been talking about, and continued to invite God into the situation. The V part, I validated her worth, and the E part was I expected God to show up. So as we prayed, and as we kind of moved through those, I guess the acronym, but obviously through pastoral care and through inviting God in, I actually saw a peace come over her. I saw that she felt safe to open up to me. I saw a clarity come in her thinking, and she left with a completely different countenance than when she came in. And obviously, that's just a simple illustration of a very spontaneous pastoral care. But it kind of shows as a reminder that we are vessels for God to work through when we work with Him. And we can see amazing results when we invite Him in to our pastoral care as well.
That is so good. And I love that you bring that we're invited in to participate in what God is doing in people's lives. What an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure, right?
Yeah, so cool. It's an
Yeah.
honor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Hey, Karen, thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to I did that quick chat with your wonderful man mountain of a husband, Isaac, and your beautiful little girl, Iona. She is
Yeah.
just a stunner. So thank you so much.
No,
I'm sure that everyone watching this will got so much out of it, especially this little wee Q&A at the end. So thank you so much, and God bless.
thanks so much, Stu.
Totally welcome.
See ya.